might not have known this, but we have an FTK floating around in the format. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. Wow, this is genuinely impressive because I think this is the most Snake Eyes players that I have seen congregated together in a large area in like an entire format, actually. The fact that Snake Eye had pretty much over the full representation of this format, which is kind of crazy. You had 5 total Snake Eyes. Now, I did classify what is going to be known as the FTK as a Snake Eyes build on the side down here because it functionally still does work with Snake Eyes stuff because you still want to use these cards to do a lot of the stuff that you normally would. And I mean, also the Snake Eyes package being like this full extension gas combo line is incredibly broken, but you have to remember that it's still classified as an FTK. So that's a lot of Snake Eyes to kind of take in, and I'm sorry about that, but I wanted to cover the FTK to kind of put a spotlight on it so that people can see this. Now, what actually challenged the big boys in the room here? Because that's a lot of Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes did not win this event, by the way, which is kind of crazy to think about. Actually, what won the event was actually Flaunderies. I know, right? You gotta love anti-meta birds actually kind of stepping on into the arena here and showcasing, you know, hey, you know, we can do something. And honestly, I think it's one of the things I've loved most about this format is just watching birds kind of come in, intercept a lot of this and actually do very well. Now, we also had Kashtira kind of showcasing some of its not so happiness in the format, and we also had an Unchained duelist stepping in here. So, you know, your meta challengers are actually pretty different here. You know, some of them you expect, but to see a developing FTK in the format, let's pass on over to deck list. Hey, it's Flaunderies. Yes, playing 2 copies of Ye Olde Dimensional Fissure. Yeah, I kind of feel like this is a normal day in the office anymore. You're kind of forced to make some maybe not so great decisions anymore, and I do think that this card definitely helps. We also have Double Evenly Matched in here as well, and we also have a Featherstorm in the main deck. This is what I would consider the slightly more comfortable part of the meta. Post-side decking, I mean, you bring in your extra Dimensional Fissure, you bring in your, you know, extra copies of the Featherstorm. It depends on how you feel you're going to need to adjust for the matchups in order to hit more of those high notes, or at least clean up the meta. I also have the Dark Will and No More that you can search for as, you know, you're off of your thrust. So I think this deck has a lot of its bases covered. We also have 1 copy of DD Crow in here, which is actually pretty nice. I like just seeing how much differences in the meta we can actually have here. All right, our Kashtira deck actually placed fairly highly, which is actually kind of nice to see. Of course, you got to remember this deck's major line of success is because we can play Shifter. Being able to Shifter your opponent is just one of those best things you can actually do. And of course, we have the 5 effect monster negation lineup here with the triple Veiler. You have your 2 Ghost Mourners, and you also have 3 more Imperms to kind of fill you on in here. And, I mean, your monster lineup is incredibly standardized here. Still doing 3/3. Everything that you want here is standardized. Do keep in mind that this build is playing Triple Desires, which is also kind of cool with 1 Pot of Prosperity. Depends on how you open up, but once again, I mean, you have enough filtering options to make these decision trees on which lines that you think you're going to need to go down, and that's fine. We also have double tack talents, and I see this build is also playing Triple Dimensional Fissure as well. Okay, good stuff. Kind of scary, actually. Our first little Snake Eyes duelist. You know, when you look at these decks, I assure you that a lot of them will feel the same here. We are starting off with the triple crossout. You know, I do honestly think that you do need to play this in a lot of these matchups. Like, you don't really have much of a choice because, you know, this matchup does kind of, if you're playing like the mirror, does come down to how many more hand traps does your opponent have versus you, and you can very easily get blown out, especially when this card exists. Being able to stop this, especially like on the defensive, really matters. Still playing the 1-for-1 as you should be. Please don't try to play this deck without this. Side decking, we'll have double Delta in here, and we do have 1 Gamma, so you are able to bring these in. I've seen a little bit more of a miss on Gamma this format, which is kind of sad, actually. actually. Excuse me, on Delta. Like, I do like this card. I think it's pretty cool to be able to do, but I can understand why people are kind of stepping away from this. You know what I mean? And what else we got back here? This is our FTK, as we're going to call it here. So you are playing a mini Rocket Salamander, a little Screw Serpent here, and you do play the All Clear. And this build straight took to main decking the triple copies of the Lullaby of Obedience. Like, that's actually kind of crazy. Now, how in the world do we achieve our fun here? Well, this little guy right here says, once per turn, we can inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each card on the field. And, you know, you can do some pretty stupid things by spinning this thing into a spell and trap card zone, and then being able to basically uncrystallize it and OTK your opponent with Blaze Bombard. Yeah, and you make it through the Proxy F Magician. We're back to Blazing Bombard Bird being a slight inconveniencing issue. I can't believe it. But you know what? I think it's actually pretty cool to see. Next up here, we have our Unchained Duelist here. And, you know, Unchained is, honestly, I'm loving seeing how people are trying to evolve this. 45 cards does kind of feel like a little bit here, which is perfectly understandable. I do see still maximizing on most of your resources here. Still doing the 1 of and 1 Shyama, which is fine. We also do have the triple Phantasme built in the main deck. Basically, you want to make sure that you can get to those key filtering options in the very early stages of the game, so that, you know, we can at least start to see the draw power help us out along the way, which I think is good. You know, being able to sculpt your hand and have the Phantasme protection up and running is both easy and good to see. And of course, man oh man, this deck being able to summon Limit Lock your opponent, yeah, that feels pretty strong. Outside of that, this is pretty refreshing to see, actually. I'm happy, honestly, to see that our friend here is still doing very strong. Wow, this is, we have striker cards in my, what in the world are we doing here? We're playing, this feels like such an interesting concoction in the meta. You have the 1 Magician Souls, so you can actually drop down the Diabell Star, but like, you have Monster Reborn, you have Econs, you are playing the Engage stuff here as well. The Engage targets, I mean, are Hornet Drones, Shark Cannon, and Widow Anchor. This is actually kind of cool. This reminds me a lot of like the old Orcust hybrid builds that people were trying out here to, you know, see if they can innovate something. And I think that's pretty cool. Also, where Arf out here, you know, actually being, you should be able to do this to get into the Magician Soul so that you can kind of start doing dumb shenanigans along the way. Also happy to see the Magical Spring is still back at it again. Yeah, we do like Magical Spring. It's been very refreshing to actually see. All right, what else we got back here? Here we go. More Lullaby of Obedience. I don't know what it is about this card, but this is one of the best things that we have had going for us in terms of warping the meta. We are citing the extra Lullaby down here as well, which is kind of funny, actually, because you just go from one build that's literally main decking as much gas as you can to having the additional copy down in the side. So, you know, you have your ratio differences here between, you know, do I dedicate 2, 3? You're not playing 1. You're either going 2 or 3. Like, realistically, that's what you want to do. Though this build also did play 2 crossouts, which I think is a little bit weird. You know, like, I feel like you want to make sure that you can have as much negation as possible to make sure that, you know, this deck can fundamentally function. But good stuff, actually. I am happy to see that more differences in the meta. And hey, look, this build chose to play 3. Okay, now this is a pretty normal day in the office. You have 3, you have the 2 deltas, you have the triple crossouts. We're only playing 1 bonfire? I guess technically you don't have to play bonfires if so many people are just letting you play Lullaby of Obedience, because this is just bonfire, cost you infinitely less money, and mission accomplished, right? Like, seems like an absolute win in my opinion. So what do you guys think about this regional breakdown? Some very, very interesting things in Blaze Bombard Phoenix. Please leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.